Now, Vanessa, let's come back to you. And what's the latest from Rafah?
Yeah, from Gaza, but particularly from Rafah, that is now under threat by Israel. This was a photo taken from Twitter, the account of Noor Naeem, who was in Gaza 1 year ago to visit her family and took this very tearful photo of herself arriving at basically the kind of, the entry sector in Rafah. And then a video of IOF tanks basically entering the same crossing yesterday. If we can just play the video. And just to show basically how the Israeli forces entered into that Rafah border crossing from occupied territory into the kind of the southwest area of Gaza. And let's have a look at what this dreadful man has said about it, Netanyahu. So just moving on to the next slide. So basically he said that the entry into Rafah serves two of the main objectives of the war, returning our hostages and eliminating Hamas. And I'm sure that's why the US was allowed to veto every single ceasefire that was not in the interest of the hostages. And he also says at the same time, we're continuing the war on Hamas. The taking of the Rafah crossing today is a very important step on the way to destroying Hamas's remaining military capabilities, including the elimination of the 4 terrorist battalions in Rafah, and an important step to damaging Hamas's governing capabilities. Of course, what he's talking about is potentially the control of the entire border section, which in the view of Israel will prevent the illegal importing of weapons and supplies to Hamas. But, we know that every time Israel says it's destroyed Hamas battalions, when the IOF evacuates, then immediately Hamas is back in those areas and firing rockets at the occupied territory. Now, interesting here that, of course, what he's intimating in his comment is that Hamas are preventing the release of the hostages, but this is from Middle East Eye. Meanwhile, Washington and Arab capitals were dealing with the fallout of Hamas actually accepting the ceasefire proposal introduced by Qatar and Egypt on Monday, as Israel rejects the offer and pursues its offensive. So Israel is clearly not acting in the interest of the hostages, and in fact, it's reported that one of the hostages was killed yesterday in the Zionist bombing of Rafah. This is from Gaza journalist Motasem A Dalloul. The US asked Hamas to accept the ceasefire proposal, claiming its refusal is the only obstacle ahead of ending the genocide in Gaza. Hamas accepted the ceasefire. Israeli occupation rejected the proposal. The US said that Hamas undermined the proposal and has to make more concessions, having accepted the proposal. Now, I just wanted to show, this was a video that was released yesterday of IOF forces preparing to destroy Rafah, just to give an indication of the mentality of the Israeli forces on the ground in Gaza. If we can just play that video. And then let's have a look at the effect of the IOF targeting with artillery and jet bombing of eastern Rafah. Leaflets were basically dropped telling people to evacuate to Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis, however, is completely destroyed. There are no services, no electricity, and no water. And yet people were fleeing eastern Rafah to try and make it to some kind of safe area. I actually spoke to friends of mine, and they said, we really don't know where to go. There's nowhere to go now. We have no escape whatsoever. And then there's a short section on a bombing of a house in eastern Rafah. It is distressing viewing, I warn people. So if we can just play this video.
يا دمعنا بعيني رفح يما الدمع لما نزح طلت ضحى طلت شهيد حتى الفرح كرب وجرح لما الحزن بالعشق يا الله
In that family, 9 were killed, 3 survived, but were very badly injured. UN agencies are putting out the message, of course, that this is a crime against humanity, as if it hasn't been a crime against humanity since the 7th of October. 600,000 children in line of fire as the IDF moves on Rafah. We had already run out of words to describe how catastrophic the situation is in Rafah, but this next chapter will take it to indescribable new levels. This is a statement from senior Hamas, which is the government in Gaza, official and spokesperson Osama Hamdan. We will not accept any deal under military pressure. We do not accept any. This is after they had accepted the ceasefire deal, by the way. We do not accept any occupation force at the Rafah crossing, which will remain a Palestinian-Egyptian crossing only. If the aggression continues, there will be no ceasefire. The Israeli army's invasion of the Rafah crossing is a crime and a dangerous escalation against a civilian facility protected by international law. Very true. The Israeli army's invasion of the Rafah crossing is a blatant attempt, to sabotage the efforts of the mediators to achieve an agreement to end the aggressions against our people. And that, of course, includes release of the hostages. And as I warned last week, guess what? The US has just completed the so-called humanitarian aid pier. Bad weather is preventing the final putting in place of the various sections of the pier. That coincides with the escalation against Rafah, 1.2 million refugees inside Rafah. So clearly, it's to a degree coming true what I said, that the US and the UK will potentially be there to take refugees to Europe or to other countries that they've basically paid to accept those refugees, and that includes Egypt.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much for that, Vanessa. Now, Charles, let's come back to the